you saved up $1,000 from your summer job, felt like an absolute legend. And 3 years later, that same $1,000 buys you fewer groceries than it did the day you earned it. Welcome back, future millionaires, and everyone currently watching their purchasing power evaporate in real time. I'm Lektha, and today we are talking about the most polite, well-dressed, low-key, sociopathic financial concept of our time: inflation. Inflation is a heist. It is a slow-motion, white glove, suit and tie heist where the thief breaks into your bank account every year, steals a percentage of your money, and leaves behind a tiny apologetic sticky note that just says economy. And the worst part? Most people don't even realize it's happening. They just feel vaguely poorer every year and blame themselves. So, today we are pulling back the curtain on the silent robbery, decoding why your savings are dying, and figuring out how to stop being the victim. Let's start with the basics so nobody gets left behind. Inflation, in the simplest possible terms, is when your money buys less stuff over time. A loaf of bread that cost $2 in 2010 might cost $4 today. The bread didn't get fancier. It is the same sad sandwich vehicle it has always been. Your money just got weaker. Now, governments measure inflation with something called the Consumer Price Index. Most years, the official inflation number sits somewhere between 2 and 3%. But here's the fun part. Real inflation, the kind you actually feel when you go grocery shopping, is often way higher than what the government reports. Because the official number averages out a basket of goods. Your real life does not average out. Your rent went up 9%. Your eggs cost double. And your Netflix subscription mysteriously got more expensive while removing half the shows. So when somebody tells you inflation is only 3%, just blink slowly and walk away. Let me also explain something the government doesn't really advertise. Inflation is not random. It is, in many ways, official policy. Central banks around the world actually target a small amount of inflation as part of how the economy is supposed to work. Their goal is around 2% per year. They believe a little inflation encourages people to spend money instead of hoarding it, which keeps the economy moving. That sounds reasonable until you realize it also means your savings are designed to lose value as a policy choice. Not a bug, not an accident, an intentional setting. And the people writing the policy? They mostly own assets, not cash. Funny how that works. Now, let's talk about why this matters for your specific bank account. If you have $10,000 sitting in a regular checking account earning literally zero interest, in 10 years, that $10,000 will have the buying power of about $7,000. You did nothing. You didn't withdraw a dime. You just sat there. And the bank still managed to let $3,000 of value disappear into the void. That is the silent robbery. That is the suit and tie thief in your account every single night. Now, the natural reaction is to ask, Lexa, what should I do? Panic. Yes, but productively. Here is the wealthy person playbook for staying ahead of inflation. Move number 1, stop keeping massive amounts of cash in a regular savings account. Most big traditional banks pay interest rates that are functionally a slap in the face. 0.01% on your savings. Meanwhile, inflation is munching at 3 to 7% a year. You are losing the war before you even show up to the battlefield. What you want is a high-yield savings account. These are typically online banks that pay actual real interest, sometimes 4 or 5%. Same FDIC protection. Same easy access to your money. Just way more interest because they don't have a building with marble floors to maintain. If you have not opened one of these yet, you are giving your bank a tip every single year. Move number 2. Own assets, not just cash. Cash sits there and rots while inflation eats it. Assets, on the other hand, generally rise in value alongside inflation. We are talking about things like stocks, real estate, and certain types of commodities. When inflation goes up, the price of those assets typically goes up too. So, you are not losing purchasing power. You are riding the wave. This is why wealthy people don't keep their net worth in cash. They keep most of it in things that grow. Cash to them is just the fuel for buying more assets, not a long-term storage method. If your strategy for protecting your money is save it, you are using a strategy from 1972. And 1972 had a savings account interest rate of 8%. We do not. Move number 3, index funds. We have a whole separate deep dive on these, but the short version is this. An index fund is a basket of hundreds of stocks bundled into one investment. Historically, the stock market returns about 7 to 10% per year on average after inflation, which means your money is not just keeping up, it is gaining ground. Even in years when the market is choppy, the long-term trend has been upward. If you start putting $200 a month into a broad index fund at age 25 and you don't touch it until 65, you will have, on average, somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million. Inflation? Beaten. Your savings account? Crying in the corner. Move number 4, real estate. Owning property has historically been one of the strongest hedges against inflation. Because as the cost of living rises, so does the value of land and the rent you can charge. But buying a house just to live in is not the same as buying a house as an asset. If your housing costs eat 60% of your income, you are not winning against inflation. You are just trapped with extra steps. There is a difference between owning real estate and being owned by real estate. Know which side you're on. Move number 5, skill stacking. This one nobody talks about, and it is genuinely the most powerful move on the list. Your earning power can grow faster than inflation if you keep upgrading your skills. If your salary goes up 10% a year because you keep getting better at what you do, inflation can't catch you. Wages are technically the most reliable inflation hedge that exists, but only if you actively manage them. Sitting at the same job for 10 years, collecting 2% annual raises is the financial equivalent of standing in quicksand. You feel like you're moving. You are, in fact, sinking. Switching jobs every 2 to 4 years tends to result in much bigger pay bumps than waiting around for loyalty raises. Loyalty is a beautiful concept for friendships. Corporations do not return it. Move number 6, which is criminally underrated. Commodity exposure. Things like gold, silver, and certain other commodities tend to hold their value during high inflation. I am not telling you to bury bars of gold in your backyard, but a small percentage of your portfolio in commodity ETFs can act like financial body armor during scary economic periods. Wealthy people have known this for centuries. Now, let's talk about what not to do during inflationary periods. Mistake number 1, panic buying expensive goods you don't actually need just because prices will keep going up. Yes, prices will keep going up, but also you don't need 3 air fryers. Calm down. Mistake number 2, pulling all your money out of investments and stuffing it under your mattress. Cash under the mattress is the worst possible inflation hedge. It is literally just a money fire that takes longer. And it adds the bonus risk of being robbed or set on fire by an actual fire, both very real possibilities. Mistake number 3, trying to time the market. When inflation hits, people get scared and sell everything. Then prices recover and they buy back in at higher levels. They have effectively bought high and sold low, which is the textbook definition of losing money. Just keep investing consistently. Boring beats clever almost every time. Mistake number 4, blindly trusting your bank's high-yield marketing. Some banks advertise high-yield accounts that pay 0.5%. That is not high yield. That is regular yield wearing a costume. Always compare the interest rate to the current federal funds rate before getting impressed. Mistake number 5, locking up too much money in long-term fixed-rate products during high inflation. If you put $50,000 into a 30-year bond paying 3% right before inflation goes to 7%, congratulations. You just locked in a guaranteed loss of purchasing power for the next 3 decades. Be careful with where you commit money during inflationary periods. Flexibility is a feature, not a bug. Now, I want to address something specifically for my younger audience. If you are 19, 20, 21 years old, time is your most powerful weapon against inflation because compounding works in your favor over decades. If you start investing even a small amount now and let it grow for 40 years, you will absolutely demolish anyone who started in their 40s. Even with inflation eating away at the dollar, time wins. Time always wins. Boomers love to say things like, "A dollar saved is a dollar earned." I am here to update that for you. A dollar saved in a checking account is a dollar slowly becoming 87 cents. A dollar invested is a dollar that fights back. Let me also break down something most personal finance people skip. There are different types of inflation, and they hit your wallet differently. Demand pull inflation happens when consumers want more stuff than the economy can supply. Cost push inflation happens when producing things gets more expensive, like when oil prices spike and shipping costs explode. And then there is monetary inflation, which is when the supply of money in the economy grows too fast and each dollar becomes worth less by simple math. Why does this matter? Because different inflation types respond to different financial moves. Stocks tend to do well in mild inflation. Real estate tends to hedge against monetary inflation. Commodities tend to spike during cost-push inflation. Knowing the type lets you pick smarter hedges. But honestly, the simplest move is just to be diversified, and you cover most scenarios automatically. Inflation is going to keep happening. It is baked into how modern economies work. Central banks literally aim for around 2% inflation as a goal. So the question is not, how do I stop inflation? The question is, how do I make sure inflation doesn't quietly bankrupt me over the next 30 years? And the answer is, own things. Own real assets that move with the economy. Increase your earning power. Invest consistently. Stop letting the bank profit off your laziness. And for the love of every dividend, please open a high-yield savings account this week. It will take you 15 minutes, and it will be the most productive financial thing you do all year. Let me also point out something nobody warns you about. Inflation does not affect everyone equally. Younger people, renters, and lower-income households tend to get hit hardest because their expenses are concentrated in rent, food, and transportation, the categories that inflate fastest. Older homeowners with paid-off houses and big stock portfolios? Inflation barely touches them. Their houses go up in value. Their stocks go up. Their cost of living is locked. That gap is structural, and the only way you climb out of it is to become an owner instead of a renter of your own future. Look, I'm not here to scare you. Inflation is not the apocalypse. It is just a fact of life that the financial system has been hiding from regular people for decades. Now you know, and you cannot unknow it. So go do something about it. Your future self will thank you. Your bank will not. But that is honestly the best part.
I have been Lexa. Hit subscribe, drop a like, and please send this to that one relative who still keeps $30,000 in a checking account because they don't trust the stock market thing. They desperately need an intervention. See you in the next one, whenever compound interest makes us all a little richer. Stay broke on the outside, hedged on the inside, and please, for the love of purchasing power, move your money.